Can. Welcome to Manifest This Believer versus Skeptic. Today we're going to talk about money. Money, 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 money. Jen, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm great.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. So here's the big question. Why is money such a trigger? Why do we want more of it, but we're constantly repelling it?
Well, money's a tough one. There's nothing else, I don't think, in the universe that we are more triggered by wanting of. It's just the topic that everybody freezes up with. But what we need to remember, and I'm human, I have trouble with this too, is that money's just energy. Okay. So if your energy says, I don't deserve this, I can't hold on to this, it's not safe to have, it's hard to get, you will continually be pushing it away no matter how hard you work. So, I think this is a great discussion. I think it's a discussion that everybody will want to tune into and listen to because we all have our own money issues.
Sure. Yeah. It's funny, as we were talking about this last week as a potential topic, one of the things that was rolling around in my head is, this bit about money beliefs, not only what we inherited, but how we value our place in the world based on money. And is that actually the right metric?
Well, of course it's not, but we all do it and we can't help it. And I've referenced this book 1,000 times. I'm going to reference it again, but Nancy Levin's book Worthy is all about how our our ability to create and attract money is directly related to how we feel about ourselves as a human being, our
Hmm.
worthiness in this world. And it's unfortunate because money has become this, as you say, metric for success. Whereas if you don't have enough of it, you're not successful. You're not worthy of being around other people. If you have a lot of it, people clamor to become part of your circle. And that doesn't mean you're a good person or you're a likable person, it just means you have a lot of money. So I think it's a great topic to dive into today.
That's great. Okay, so what kind of messages did you hear about money growing up?
Well, I didn't hear a lot about money at all. Like money was never a topic at the dinner table. It wasn't something we talked about. It wasn't something we griped about. It wasn't something we aspired to. But having said that, we didn't talk about money at all. And so I knew through the energy in the room that there was a point that was acceptable for spending, acceptable to desire to. I knew there was this upper limit of money in our household. And I knew my mom and dad wanted more. Like my mom would constantly be pulling projects out of magazines and giving them to my dad and saying, I want our house to look like this. Now, my dad was a very, very talented tradesman. He could pick up any tool and basically deliver to my mom what she wanted because he was so handy. If he hadn't been so handy, I don't think she would have gotten what she wanted because it would have cost 3 times the price. So I knew my mom had desires and my dad had desires, but I also knew when we went shopping or we went out that there was a limit to which we could spend. And so I took that into my adult life. What about
Right.
you? What about you? What did you hear?
So I'm first generation Canadian. And so for my folks, obviously, they came to Canada with not a lot in their pockets and not a whole ton of external support in terms of family, because they were all back in the home country. And so, I often saw my parents working hard. Late nights. My mom was a real estate broker. And so there was often late nights and weekends where there would be a lot of working happening. And I think what stayed with me was just, we didn't see waste in the household. Everybody was quite mindful. I don't know that we specifically spoke about it, whether we had it or didn't have it. But certainly there was a respect for money. And I, was always the saver. Like if I got any kind of birthday money or pocket money, I did not spend it. I thought I'm just going to save as much as I can and was never frivolous. And often, like even today, I find it very difficult if we talk about it from an historical perspective. I find it really tough to go out and buy myself something special that I really want. For me, money has a specific purpose and end game, and I'm rather mindful around it. Having said that, if I'm out to dinner with friends, for example, I don't mind picking up a bill or treating somebody, or for somebody I really care about, buying a lovely gift. So interesting. If it's spending on myself, I don't particularly like it, but if it's spending on someone else, I'm okay with it.
So, you're under the microscope, Sharon. I hate to tell you this, but I've just picked up on a bunch of language that you used. So, you said, I don't mind treating. So, in other words, treating is something I don't do every day. It's out of the ordinary. It takes a special occasion. So, there's this idea for you that you don't mind treating, but there's a reason to hold back in other cases. You said also that you don't like spending money on yourself, but you're happy to spend on others. So, there could be this idea that I'm not good enough. And listen, I'm just pointing things out that are so obvious I can't not. But I'm not good enough to spend it on me, but I will spend it on them. The challenge with all of us is this, and you also said this idea of savings, right? I've been more tending, I tend to save money. Me too. I hoard money. I will go one step further. When I was in business, if our professional bank account got below $100,000, I started to panic. You want to talk about lack mentality?
Yeah,
Panic. We
yeah.
had $100,000 in the bank that wasn't spoken for, and I would panic if it got below that because of the lack that there wasn't more coming. I was scared there wasn't more coming. So, this idea of holding on to money and hoarding money is lack mentality. We have been taught as children saving money is good, borrowing money is bad. To have money, this whole idea of having 3 months in the bank because you just don't know what's going to happen, we are expecting devastation, right? So there, it's so hard to look at how you are around money. But again, the buddy system works. If somebody can actually point out to you where your money blocks are, that's a great exercise to go through. Um, you also spoke about a respect for money and not being frivolous with money. Again, why not? And I'm posing this to myself too. Why not be frivolous with money? If it's just energy, and the better my energy, the more money I attract, why can't I spend at at nauseum? Why can't I have what I want? Why can't I go out and get the things that I would like and desire in my life because I'm here to have the most abundant life possible? Um, Me too. I was raised by a World War II housewife that had one piece of chocolate a year at Christmas. And so if you don't think that candy jar was hoarded under the couch by my mother, we weren't allowed to have the candy, even though we could buy tons of it by that point. So these childhood early money memories are really interesting for us all to dig into because they show the way of the future for how we can turn it around to attract more of it. Because I'm going to go out there and say 90% of us want more money because I think we all know it will make our life richer, better, more rewarding, more memorable. We can treat others in our life. We can experience things with that money that we might not be able to today. So it's a hot topic.
I'll say, I mean, you're part of this, go off and spend freely. My brain is screaming. Um, and I hear what you're saying around the energy and the attraction of it. But from a practical perspective, I'm also thinking, yeah, but that's how people also get into trouble. They get multiple credit cards and they throw everything on their credit card and then they shop till they drop. And then,
Look at those
comes to the
beliefs.
end of it. Yeah, then
Look at
what?
those beliefs right there. Shop till you drop. Um, There's an assumption that spending will lead to credit card debt. There's an assumption that spending is always going to end up in lack. That's just your thought process. That can be turned around so fast. Money comes easily and abundantly to me. I do not have to work hard for money. It's always there when I need it. Every time I turn around, money shows up. Like, all it is a shift in perspective.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
gotta say, this one I am struggling with
Okay.
because, we know people who have gotten themselves into hot water and
Don't look at those people. Stop looking at those examples. They come from lack-based mentality.
tell me more about that.
Why would you look at someone else's success on the downward and not look at someone's success at the upward? Why would you go to the extreme? I'm not saying you, I'm saying the general collective. Why would we go to the extreme of always looking at the negative lack side to prove our point? Why don't we look at the people that are constantly pulling out credit cards to pay for people because of generosity and they've got it? Why aren't we looking at the people that have got so much that they have more to give, that they tithe 10% every single paycheck? Why aren't we looking at the people that have lots? Why do we always put ourselves in the bucket of people that have less?
Probably because, as you said, the people that have are the ones we can look to as an example. But if you're not quite at the have yet, and you're not quite where you need to be, let's just say practically, not even extravagantly, but practically, this can be a struggle.
Why practical all the time though? And as I say, like
Because
you're
that's
sitting.
me. I'm the
I know.
skeptic.
I know. And listen, I get it. And I've been there and I do go there. Don't get me wrong, but again, I've got 25, 30 years of work under my belt that I know this is not necessarily the case. But you are sitting in the middle of, does my mind allow me to go to a place of worry, debt, and lack? Or does my mind allow me go to a place that this could be a turning point? It's always there. It is a positive flow in my life. It's constantly flowing and growing and coming. And I am a great attractor of it because of my worth. I deserve it. I was put on this planet to have more and to be abundant. And that's what the universe source wants for us. It's just a pivot in your mindset.
Or does my mind go to, I'm comfortable, everything is lovely, I'm fortunate, I don't need to go drastically one way or the other?
Fine. Listen, all money does is make us feel the way we could feel now without it. Let me explain. Money and the things money buys, the experiences money buys, and the peace money buys, you can sit in your living room and experience that same elation without it. And that's what brings more of it. So, back to your idea of being relaxed and content. Contentment. You don't need money to feel content. You can feel content without money. That's the practice right
Mhm.
there.
Wow. This is a hot topic, is it not? Just like we
Yeah,
said.
it is. Like, we could talk about this for weeks. We probably will talk about it over and over again. But why don't we pivot a little bit into the signs of how you are actually repelling money? Because if listen, let me ask you this. Do you want more money, Sharon?
I would always say yes to more money.
Okay. So if we all, or most of us, or many of us would say yes to more money, let's look at the signs of how we might actually be repelling it instead of attracting it. Sound good?
Okay, sure. Let's try that.
Okay. So, uh, you and I have been in business for 30 years, 30
Hmm.
more, 32. Have you ever in your life known that you were undercharging or discounting your services because you felt you either didn't want to push the envelope, or you maybe weren't sure if you could get away with it, or didn't feel it was aligned with the services you were offering? I could go on, but do you remember a time where you were ever undercharging or discounting your services?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So often when I'm doing stuff I really enjoy doing for clients, I often will have what I consider to be a safe rate, not a reach rate, but a safe rate. In fact, I can recall I had one client. I had them for about 10 years, and I only raised my rate once in 10 years because I loved working with them. And for me, it didn't feel like work. It felt like I was doing stuff I really enjoyed.
Okay. So here's the truth, because you just said, if I can, again, like I'm taking a lot of liberties here, but you said that because I love it, I didn't feel, or I didn't do, or I just didn't up my rates, right?
Correct.
So let's think about it from this perspective. Just because you love what you do doesn't mean you owe it to the world to do it for free or to do it at a discount. In fact, many times, the more you get into, I'm going to call it the spiritual world, or this world of the idea of manifestation and of being close to source, it's often misinterpreted that passion is a reason to charge less. Like, look at, let's look at the people that are doing the biggest and m- most honorable work in the world, like the Mother Teresa's of the world. She doesn't charge, right? So we get this idea that passion leads to charging less, when actually it should be the exact opposite, a reason to charge more, because your work is powerful, it's aligned, it's transformative. So here's maybe a reframe. Instead of thinking, I love this too much to charge full price, why don't we instead reframe this to, um, but yes, when you charge fairly and unapologetically, you say yes to reciprocity, you model empowered spiritual leadership, and you attract clients who value and raise and rise to meet your frequency. How about that?
Super interesting. Here's what was going through my head. I had done a contract job for a while, and my contract was up for renewal. What was interesting was I had brought in and worked and created lots of value within that organization. And then I was on contract renewal asked to reduce my rate. Now, keep in mind, I was 2IC. I knew everything, right? And I thought that that was an unrealistic ask. And I thought it was disingenuous if I did go ahead and lower my rate, because that would mean, my interpretation, that I was overcharging the entire time. So there was no financial reason. In other words, the company wasn't going through a difficult time or anything like that where it warranted it. I was simply being asked to lower my rate. And in that particular case, I walked away.
Good for you.
We couldn't agree to terms, and I walked away from that particular contract.
Good for you.
So that went through my head as you were speaking about things.
Yeah, so I mean, clearly, listen, we could spend hours talking about this point by point, but you just made a great point. Like every single time money comes up, it becomes this like pressure cooker of what do I do, and do I walk away, and do I accept it, and what does that mean about me? So there's a lot of
Hmm.
worth, right? There's a lot of worth trapped up in the idea of money. So, a couple of other ways and signs that you are repelling money: saying yes to money goals, but subconsciously dreading the visibility or the responsibility. Because the minute you say, yes, I want more, you know, you don't have to work hard for it necessarily. We can talk about that for a cajillion years too. But it many times will mean you have to come out from underneath the box, right? Like this podcast, perfect example. If you and I both decide that we would like a podcast, and wouldn't it be great if it was successful and it actually earned us an income, but we really don't want to put our voice out there we go, repelling money, right?
So it's the idea of doing something that will bring it in as opposed to sitting there and hoping you win the lottery.
Yeah, like we've talked about this. There is action required at a certain point. But the whole idea is not to be pushing uphill all the time. It's inspired action. We talked about that in episode 1, how you came to me and said, "Would you like to do this?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's inspired action." And now you and I both know how much work this is, right? But it's
But
but it
it's
was
fun.
but it's fun and we love it. So, another sign you're repelling money, sudden unexpected bills after financial wins. You won it, and then next thing you know, all I seem to be getting is bills. So the minute you get it, it's going out through your fingers as fast as it comes. Another one, never feeling safe, no matter how much is in the bank. Go back to my example. We had 100 grand in the commercial corporate account, and we still didn't feel safe. Talk about lack mentality. And then money panic versus money openness energy. And you talked about this a little earlier. Like, what if I get in debt? What if I have to, close this down? What if I don't have enough? What if the Visa and the MasterCards come running after me? Yeah, but what if not? What if you get more than beyond measure? What if you're more successful than you ever could have imagined? What if people want to buy your product because you're giving them so much value? What about that?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I was just going to say to tie this piece off, what you expect, you create.
Or what you expect you notice because you're filtering for it.
Fair enough. Let's move on.
So I think we were talking, what's the difference between, say, manifesting money and managing money? Because I think this is where I'm getting hung up a little bit.
So, just because you've manifested money, or in other words, you are now seeing in your bank account, in your 3D reality world, money, an abundance of money, or more money, or a constant flow of money, this doesn't mean you stop managing it. In fact, there's an argument out there that why would the creator, source, energy, God give you more if he, she, it doesn't think that you can handle what you've got, right? So, interestingly, last uh, I've had money issues in my life, and what I tended to do was put my head in the sand and just pretend it wasn't there. Okay.
Hmm.
But guess what else also happened? I never got out of it. It was always there because I never dealt with it. So last year, no, 2 years ago, I decided to write a big list. This list was all the things that were really weighing on my mind from a money perspective. I wrote them out on a piece of paper, and I decided that year, I think it was 2023, to tackle every single one of them in whatever way I could. And do you know what happened?
Tell
They
me.
all they all disappeared, right? So I started managing better. I started tracking better. I started paying off even though I was scared, right? So now, let's say I owe $12,000 in property tax and I've got about $13,000 in that account. I'm scared to death to pay that 12 grand because that leaves me with a grand. But I know if I pay that, I will be seen as a responsible steward of money and more will appear. So, on my to-do list this week is to pay off that debt. So, we're not going to get more. We have to trust source. We have to trust the universe that there will be a constant flow of it if we are good stewards of what we've got.
So what I'm hearing is I get to keep my monthly spreadsheet where I track what I track.
Yes, you do, and you're very good at it.
Okay, now I have my security blanket, if you will, that I can keep doing that.
There's a
Because
whole
actually, it makes me feel better to know, what's going where and where things are at and how things are being managed. And it's planning for, okay, what's my next trip and how are things going? I mean, I feel a great deal of comfort in it.
right. So, I mean, you are way ahead of me in terms of organization. We both know that organization, spreadsheets, charts, and all of the rest of it to be able to track your money. I do mine in a slightly more organic way. I just in my head know where things are at. But the point is, 2 years ago, I had my head in the sand, and now 2 years later, I'm paying off, I'm debt free, and more keeps coming in at a rate that sure wasn't coming in 2 years ago. So you can call it luck, you can call it coincidence, but I know that I'm being rewarded for being a better manager of the money that I have.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's interesting. One of the things I was going to mention, and this was an ongoing joke with my partner. I'm the type of person who is a little bit of a squirrel with money in terms of I've always got like a 20 stashed somewhere in case I need it. Like I have a lot of in case I need it
Yeah.
stashed away in different places. And the ongoing joke was grab me by the ankle and shake me and money's going to fall out of all kinds of different pockets. My greatest delight was, fall rolls around and you finally got to put on that coat. And I put on that coat that I haven't worn for months, put my hand in the pocket and go, oh, look, there's a $20 bill. And it would delight me to no end.
Well, of course, because you just proved that money comes from funny and mysterious places.
Oh,
But you
darn.
also but you also just said, "In case I need it." Bum, bum, bum,
Oh,
right?
no.
So, in case I need it, why would you need it? If there's a constant flow of ever flowing prosperity, abundance, and cash flow coming to you, why would you need to tuck it away? And listen, again, I'm telling you the concept. I'm not saying I'm perfect with it myself, but I am getting better. My accounts now are nowhere near what they used to be in a cash perspective because they're being invested, used for and circulated in this beautiful economy that we have. That's what recessions are. People
Yeah.
stop spending money and it gets us in big global problems.
So I have to tell you, I thought about you this weekend in the silliest way because I went to here in Penang. There's a place called the Hin Bus Depot, and it's where a lot of different vendors and craftspeople and microbreweries, if you will, all that kind of stuff sort of get together. And it's in this really cool old bus depot that's on the island. So it's a lot of fun to go to, and I happened to go there, and I saw a dime on the grass that was left there. And I actually thought about you and giggled because I reached down and I picked it up and I put it in my pocket.
Yeah, that's a sign. There's more money coming. Like,
But I
remember the
thought about
day
you, I'll tell you that.
yeah. Like, remember the day that we were in Panama and I said to you, "I just found a $20 bill on the ground," and the next thing I knew, I had a $75,000 tax return.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a sign, guys. Money is coming. It's coming. It's a sign that money is on its way. And if we can hold on to that versus the opposite, watch what happens,
Hmm.
right? Just watch what happens. What's the worst thing that can happen? You'll stay where you are. But what if something shifts? What if
Yeah.
you see a miracle? What if what I'm saying could actually be true?
Oh, you're pushing. You're pushing.
Well, I think that listen, we money is big, but where we start with this whole topic as humans, we have to start really keeping track of and get a buddy. Get someone that you can share this experience with. Start looking at, and maybe not even looking at, but start noting and becoming aware of what your money beliefs are. Do you
Hmm.
feel guilty for having more than others? Every time you get ahead, something breaks down. Do you have that idea of sabotage? My parents fought about money constantly, so I avoid the topic. I don't want money because it causes fights. Start thinking and being aware of where your head is at when the topic of money comes up.
Well, and I think we'd like to invite listeners if they've got any ideas, because obviously this is a very exuberant discussion between Jennifer and I. And I'm sure there's lots of people screaming at their devices right now, wanting to say something to either one of us.
For
So
sure.
we'd like to invite you to go ahead and do that and let us know what you're thinking and what your beliefs are.
Yeah, would love that. Um, and listen, I know what you're saying. You don't understand my situation, Jennifer. Oh, must be nice, Jennifer. You don't know what bills I have to pay, Jennifer. You don't know what, and on and on and on. Oh, yes, I do. Oh, yes, I do. All I'm asking you to do is to open your mind up enough to think today. This is all I want you to do. Think that maybe there is another way to think about that topic. How could you shift that sentence? And listen, if you need help, we're going to open these lines up soon. We haven't figured out which episode to do that. I will help you. I will help you reframe what you're saying to yourself to turn it into something that's way more productive and way more abundant.
That's exciting. Okay, so I think we're coming to the end of our podcast today, and I think we need some challenges around money. So, what do you recommend as a believer challenge, Jennifer?
So I've got a couple ideas here for you, but I also just want to mention, and we probably should have mentioned this a little earlier, that there will be a part two to this because I don't want to talk about the current idea of money without giving you some hope. So part two, which is coming up next week, will be what I prescribe to you to help you get more money into your life. So stick around for part two. It's coming up next. I'm going to give you a money prescription to make all of your money problems seem less worrisome. But for this week, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write down, what would having more money allow me to become? And then I want you to practice feeling peace or safe with that version of yourself for 5 minutes a day. Okay. So what would money allow me to become? And I'm going to give you an example. I recently, in my new house, have a landscaper. I never had a landscaper in my life for 56 years. I never had a landscaper because I came from a DIY family. We always did the raking, we always did the edging, we always did the turning over of the dirt. And now that I have a landscaper, even though it was very difficult at first because I felt I should be doing that work, now I have more time on my hands to do other things I enjoy than the sweat browbeating work of gardening. I get to just do the planting part and spend more time doing that because I enjoy it so much. So that's just a little example. What would having more money allow me to become? Think about it, feel safe in it. That's all I want you to do.
Okay, so I'm going to take the other perspective now and give a little bit of a skeptic challenge then and say I would suggest tracking money thoughts for 3 days. Every time you think about money and you feel guilt or stress or avoidance, write it down. See what you are feeling in that moment. And then at the end of 3 days, ask yourself, are the thoughts true or just some old conditioning? And maybe with the balance of what I'm suggesting and what Jennifer's suggesting in our next podcast with some real life challenges, maybe we'll move to how to get through all of that stuff with a bit of a sense of balance.
Good luck, everybody, and let us know how you do. We really, really, really would like to hear your comments.
Thanks, everybody. We'll talk soon.